Hello and welcome. I'm Jennifer from Joy of Stationery, and what I wanted to do today was do a little bit of an introduction to how I start planning for the week. And I received a request from Hobonichi Stationery to do a video on how I combine both analog and digital planning. And I thought that was just such a good topic because it's still something that I am trying to figure out for myself. So let me go over a little bit about what I am doing in terms of the A6 Avec. So I have switched over to a voiceover for now, just because I decided to speed up the video of this next section just so that you can kind of see a little bit more quickly what I end up doing when I plan in my techos. So as you can see here, I have opened up the A6 Avec techo to the 8th and 9th of November. And one thing that I like to start off with is something you might have noticed from my previous videos, and that's to make sure to write out the day of the week that it is, just because in the A6 original, we get the Japanese character for the day, but I won't necessarily know at a quick glance what day it is. So I tend to write the day and the date at the top for every day, and that's just kind of how I get started. Though I've done a setup of my A6 Avec in the past, I do tend to move some things around depending on my needs. So I wanted to focus it in November specifically more towards the work that I need to get done and what will be the most helpful in organizing my thoughts for my work. So what I've decided to do first of all is to write at the very top what is sort of governing my November, and that is ACRIMO, which stands for Academic Writing Month, and that's where I want to make writing the real focus of my month. Then what I do is, you can see I've made these cute little strange looking stars and I use that to list down what I need to get done today. And what this allows me to do is to focus specifically on 3 main priorities for the day. And this is something that you can adapt, and you can start out with 3 priorities, and once you get them done, you can move to the next 3. But I just find that it's helpful to start the day off with this kind of focus, particularly as things get more intense by the end of the year and in need of a little bit more structure for myself, at least. And so I, for now, have tended to list 3 things that I need to get done that day underneath the starred heading there. And so you'll see me kind of make these little bullets, 3 bullets, and that's where I will fill in my 3 main things to get done that day. You can also call it 3 priorities for that day. Next, what I do is I like to use the Hobonichi layout on the page and break it up a little bit further in order to fit my needs. And it just helps me to, be able to kind of see the page and see different sections. I like to use my pencil board as a quick and easy straight edge. So that's what you see me doing now. And I divide up that right-hand column using a line there. And what I've decided to use that bottom section for are some guiding questions specific to the work that I need to get done that day and specific to my work focus this month, which is again on academic writing for myself at least. I'll be listing questions on these sections here that I have been inspired to include by Thrive PhD, and I'll include the link below. But these are questions that basically help me to keep track of the progress that I've made that day and to also prepare for the day after. So this first question is, what went well today? So that helps me keep track of my successes that day, as well as the little wins and the things that ended up going smoothly. The next question that I have down there is, what could use more support? And so I like that we move from focusing on successes to focusing on challenges, but framing those challenges in terms of the need for support rather than just dwelling on the obstacles themselves. Next, what I end up writing down is, or the next question rather, to answer or keep track of is, what was the most interesting or exciting part of my work today? And I really like this question because it helps me to tap back into what excites me about my work, and especially my writing and my research. And that's sort of the spark or motivation that really gets me going, particularly when things get more challenging or busy or overwhelming. It's a good reminder for what I do appreciate or love or get excited about when it comes to my work. And finally, the last question is, what is my plan for tomorrow? So what I like about this is that it helps me to not only reflect on the day's work, but also to sort of think ahead and prep for tomorrow, thinking about what I might need in terms of that support. And that might actually influence what I write down for my priorities the next day, for example, or again, think about, what I need to be able to get things done for the next day. So this is how I like to kind of set up and use the Hobonichi layout in this way. And I also like to keep the left-hand portion as a timeline. So if I have any time-bound appointments, I can put that down there. But I can also use the extra space for any notes, any little, reminders or things like that. And if you've seen some of my previous videos, you might know that I had been using the A6 Hobonichi Avec for gratitude logging on the daily pages. And so I still have a little bit of room, especially in that top section, as you can see there, where I can still list my gratitude ritual. So I like to list 4 things that I'm grateful for that day. And so this still gives me a little bit of room to be able to do that. Something that I also was inspired by Thrive PhD, is including these 2 checkboxes at the very top here. And so one checkbox is for self-care, as you can see, and the other is for, hit my goal. And that gives me something to look forward to check off if I have indeed met my goal today for writing, as well as if I made sure to take care of myself that day, so engage in some form of self-care. And I think that's just a good way to foreground a healthy work-life balance right at the top there as well. So that's just how I decided to kind of incorporate analog planning for my work in a way that has been really helpful for me thus far as November has started out, and how I hope to continue to use this for the rest of November, actually. Also, I forgot to mention that I've really liked using the vintage Sarasa gel pens. This is in a kind of a dark green, and it happens to match the November grid in the Hobonichi A6 original. Next, what I have is the Weeks, and this is the Weeks that I've been using primarily for work. And I'll be going over a little bit of what I decided to do for the layout in the weeks to help me keep track on a week-by-week basis of my work alongside my A6 Avec. So what I do first is I use my pen to create columns on the left-hand side, and I create columns specifically for the work days, for Monday through Friday. I try to keep the weekend separate, and as I mentioned in a previous video, it's my way of attempting to create some healthy boundaries between my work life and my home life or personal life. It doesn't always work, but at least it's an attempt to kind of get into the practice of doing that. So the columns then I use for the work week for Monday through Friday. The bottom section, which is the weekend, I use that extra space for some extra notes. So I'll be going a little bit over what I use the different sections for. That first column I use for time-bound appointments for each day. That's something that I include on the A6 as well, but this way I can kind of see the week at a glance and what appointments that are time-bound or meetings, things like that, that I have in a given week. That second column, you can see I have reserved for basically hours allocated for a particular writing project. What that allows me to do is just write down how many hours I've spent on the project in that middle column. And then in the last column, I reserved that for brief notes and or tasks. And so for that third column then, I can write some brief notes or brief tasks that I ended up doing on that project in the time that I allocated for that project. So again, the first column, a quick way to see my daily or my appointments for that week that are time bound. In the middle column, a quick way to see how many hours on each day that I've allocated for a particular project, and you can do this for multiple projects as well. And the last column, a way to kind of just keep track of the progress I've been making. What are the tasks that I ended up doing for that particular day's work? Now on the right side, you can see that I've divided it up into sections as well. At the top, I have a section I've divided up into two. The first section is where I've been writing down my monthly goals, specifically here my monthly writing goals, but again, you can be for any kind of monthly work goals that you'd like to track. This allows me to, again, on a week-by-week basis, just have a reminder on every weekly spread about what my monthly goals are and just to kind of keep them foregrounded. Next to that, I have kind of a publication pipeline, and it has also evolved a little bit to be a place where I write down upcoming deadlines. And what that allows me to do is also just have a reminder on every weekly page about what my upcoming deadlines are, just so that I don't forget about them. In that middle section, you can see that I've allocated for a weekly writing plan. And so I have a little bit of a bigger section where I can do a little bit more of a detailed look at how I want to plan the week, what kinds of tasks or stages of a project I'd like to get done. And then finally, that last section on the bottom, I've reserved for potential brainstorming, so it's a little bit of an extra flexible space if I need it, and or review or reflection of the week, which I have at the moment written down in the extra space afforded by the weekend. So you can see here I've put the week and the A6 daily pages or the spreads side by side. And I just wanted to kind of show you how I use the daily pages to have a little bit more of an in-depth look at, the kind of work that I want to do that day and keeping track of that. And then the weekly spread, using that in tandem with the A6 in order to get kind of a bird's eye view on what the week is looking like, how it's organized, what the various time-bound appointments and things are, as well as keeping track of some of the macro things like monthly goals, weekly goals, upcoming deadlines, and being able to kind of see that all at a glance. So you can see that the A6 is really handy to do that more micro level planning for each day for work, and then the weeks as a kind of macro level planner. And this just helps to kind of keep things a little bit organized, gives me a little bit more structure, particularly when I'm feeling overwhelmed with work and work-related tasks. So this was a quick look at how I am using my analog planners and techos to plan for work. And what I'll be showing you next are a couple of digital tools, namely Todoist and Notion, that I've been using in tandem with the analog to help me keep track of things, to provide more structure, and to help overcome some of the overwhelm.